Hello and welcome to the Rover Ramble podcast. My name's Rover and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Each month I'll be joined by a different special guest for a Ramble conversation. So without further ado, let's introduce today's guest. This month I'll be joined by a friend of mine, Simmy, who is on YouTube with about 250 subscribers, is a presence on Twitter and seems to know everybody I know. Simmy, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, I don't know how that happened, but I do just seem to know a ridiculous quantity of people. But we're here.
It's everyone I come across. There's some sort of connection between yourself and them. It's crazy. It blows my mind, but I mean, congratulations, you know everyone.
Hey, that's an achievement. Trophy unlocked, knows everyone.
Brilliant. Simmy, one of the first things we do on the podcast is have a quick chat about what have you been up to about the last month or so?
Oh, this month has been absolute chaos, literally. I've been pretty much working non-stop. Whether it's, my actual 9-to-5 day job or trying to sort some stuff out on the server that I own with Minecraft, it's just, non-stop. Work.
Brilliant, yeah. It does seem to be one of the busier times of year. I don't know, it always seems to happen. There's a couple of times a year, it kicks in. For me, it's usually about September and this time of year, and it just goes mad. I'm sure the world goes mad. On my side of things, I've been doing... I haven't been doing too much, to be fair. It's been a little bit quieter. I've been slowing down a little bit my content. But I guess some of the big news in the Minecraft community is the splitting of the Cave and Cliffs update into 1.17 and 1.18.
I don't know how I feel
generation.
Don't know. I feel... this is probably a bit controversial already, but I feel like they came out originally, announced, oh yes, this is going to be the update. And they're like, nah, hold on. This is the next 2 updates. Why? I don't know.
Yeah,
why announce this 1 update but it's 2?
It's been a bit of a shock, I think, to the community having the update split into 2. When we were actually quite far into the development cycle, we saw quite a bit of the content already in game, especially a lot of the. Already the cave generation was coming in. We were beginning to get biome related blocks and mobs and bits, and it was a little bit of a shock, I have to admit. But I think I understand the reasoning behind it from Mojang's perspective, and I think it's actually something we're going to touch on a bit in our main topic about server hosting and all of that jazz. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock. I think everyone wasn't expecting it to happen. But then again, I think if we're going to get a better performing and better update overall, it might just as well be worth it.
Yeah, they definitely need to performance because since 1.12, it's just been non-existent. Let's be honest, it's a nightmare.
It really has been. And that leads us on quite nicely to discussing our main topic. And in today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be discussing our experiences with hosting Minecraft servers. Now, Simmy, let everyone know, what is your experience with hosting Minecraft servers?
So, since about, I think it was the back end of November, we actually originally launched this. It's myself and a friend of mine, Zeros, actually released a server called Zeacraft. It's got SMP and it did have Skyblock for a bit, but that's changing and moving into something a little bit different. But the SMP is still up just now, running on 1.16.5. And yeah, so that's been almost 6 months now. Wow, that's quite scary. But yeah, there's a lot goes with it. There really is. It seems really simple on the surface, have a server, run Minecraft, done. But the amount of stuff that goes into it behind the scenes is a lot more than people probably realise.
It really is. Now, it's been a little bit of a different story on my side of things. I run and host the Amathacraft server, so I've been doing that since late 2017, so scarily coming up to 4 years in October, which has flown by. So yeah, there's been a lot of experiences, I think, that I've and knowledge that I think I've built up over the time, and it's one of those things you never seem to know what you want to know. You can never get the job done fully without a bit of Google searching, I think.
Let's be honest, the only difference between people who do this stuff and people who don't is they know what they read when they Google it. That's literally the only difference.
Exactly. It all revolves around being able to get a good Google search and getting the results you want.
I mean, life does, let's be honest, these days. Life is just a good Google search.
It really is, to be fair. It really is. So, Simmy, what would you say is the number one thing that you've learned from the past 6 months about server hosting?
don't try to run anything above 1.12 unless you've got a lot of finances to be able to run it, and you're willing to spend days optimizing a server. Then 1.6 anything above 1.12 is absolute hell. It really is. It's just did you have the same experience with it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been hosting a server since 1.12, going all the way up until the most recent version. Now, the Amathcraft SMP server is always running, or generally running, on the most recent version of the game, so not a lot has happened in 1.12. And looking back, performance was better. I don't know if that's a balance between we were doing less and famously 1.12 is just so optimized for performance. And we've just seen this.
It's like Mojang literally said after 1.12 they didn't bother with optimizing it for servers, which doesn't really make sense when you look at like the longevity of Minecraft. It's all server based. It's not a single player that's kept it going for this long. It's servers and the many endless possibilities of interacting with people and all the different things you can do with everybody. So I think it's a weird decision, but it then makes sense as to what you're saying for the 1.17, 1.18, and starting to look at trying to optimize the game again, because it's what we need. Let's be honest.
It really is. It really is. I think there was a real big noticeable struggle actually within the server hosting community in around the 1.13, 1.14 days. I think 1.14 is famously one of the most horrific versions of the game, not because of the content, even if it does include villagers, which aren't exactly the most popular mob in Minecraft.
Don't even get me started on that. That's a whole.
But I mean, looking back at the changelogs, and we went all the way up to 1.14.4, and they contained a lot of serious bugs, that version of the game. And it led on to 1.15, which was the bug fixing update. That was one of the main features, actually. It was bees and bugs. It wasn't titled that, but I think in everyone's...
It should have been.
It should have been, really. And in everyone's sort of... all the server hosters out there, I think we praised a little bit when we're seeing a little bit more attention being focused on actually... we do need to make this side of the game a bit better and easier to run for people to do, because I think as hopefully the listeners of the podcast today will get a little bit of an insight into what it's actually like to run a Minecraft server, which is it's an interesting experience and process, and performance I think is one of the number one issues. So, Simmy, what sort of performance issues have you run into sort of while hosting servers?
So we'll probably have slightly different experiences on this because Amathcraft is private, but the one that I run, Zeacraft, is actually public, so you can join it. So the biggest issue originally was, say if myself or Zebras was streaming it, so that also gets a bit of attention to server, people want to join, play, etc. As soon as it gets probably about the 15 player mark and everyone's away, all these random coordinates doing their own things, loading in hundreds and hundreds of chunks, the TPS just goes through the floor. It absolutely hates it. So we spent probably, it must be about weeks now, just optimizing every little possible detail that we can, including there's a lot of plugins and mods which are actually really good for helping optimizations. You also get things like clear lag and stuff which are okay, but they can cause some problems as well, like if people die and then clear lag comes through and gets rid of their stuff. It's trying to find the balance between keeping people happy and keeping the game playable can be quite tough. But things like lithium, phosphor, and sodium are really good for trying to help your performance.
They really have been. And I only recently sort of came across them, I guess, in the past 6 months or so, when they've picked up a lot of popularity, the 3 mods. So for those who are unaware, they were originally made by Jelly Squid, who I believe has now stepped down from the development, but still being developed by a group of people called the Caffeine group of people. And they really have been a godsend. So Lithium is a general optimization mod, which can be put on the client side and on server side for Fabric. And there is also Phosphor, which I believe focuses on lighting in the game, which is seriously inefficient. And also there is Sodium, which is client side, which is a little bit like your Optifine, for just in a different format and version, which a lot of people have found is incredibly better than Optifine, actually, which is strange because Optifine was a bit of a staple mark of a optimization mod within the game, but then again, it never did server side, did it?
That's the biggest issue. It's got people need the gap to be bridged between what's server side and what's client side. At the end of the day, from us running it, we want to make it as simple as possible to the people who want to join and play. So the more that we can do to make their experience easier is ideal for us. We don't want to be saying, oh, you need to go and install these 5 different things and then you can come and play our server. We'd rather say, listen, load up your Minecraft, come play, we'll do with the rest.
Exactly. I think that really is one of the... it's a server hosting dream, and I think it has become more difficult in recent years with ever more strain on servers.
Oh, 100%.
You can have a fairly good server, a good amount of RAM on there, storage space and all of that jazz. But then if just Minecraft itself, vanilla Minecraft, just doesn't like servers, and there's this constant battle between allowing your players to experience the game, play the game however they want to, obviously dependent on the server and your style, and the actual physical hardware and software limitations which prevent you and say, actually, no, I'm sorry, no more hoppers or crazy things like that. It's become really difficult, and I really hope, and I know so many people in the community, I think it's a completely broad thing, really hope we get some proper focused optimization for server hosting, because it feels like it's getting ever more a struggle to make servers perform as you'd expect them to perform.
Yeah. I mean, the people who run them, let's be honest, we don't have infinite bank accounts. Do you know what I mean? I'm not Bill Gates. I can't afford to just keep throwing money at hardware. Like,
exactly.
You know, we work for our money and then we put it into this. It needs to work. There's only so far you can go with it to let it actually work. So, like, it's trying to find the balance between how much time are you really willing to put in for optimization. And for us on 116, it's been horrible. It's been so long, and that's with a reasonably high performance server as well.
Yeah, it has. It just feels like it's becoming ever more an issue within the community, and it's really difficult. And Simmy, you mentioned on the cost front of it, and that is one of, I find personally, the most challenging part of hosting a server. Being able to actually pay for a company to host your server, and the battles that I've been through with server hosting companies it's incredible. So I think over my roughly 3.5 years of hosting the Amathcraft server, I've probably been through about 6 or 7 different hosts now, and everything has, you name it, has been an issue. And I tell you, the one big issue, which I think if you're ever looking into going into the hosting or trying to find a server host, is it's got to have good customer service.
Oh,
and have
1,000%.
Hosts that know Minecraft. They know the game itself. They know the servers. They are knowledgeable and they're willing to help. Because I've had multiple server hosts now where that's become such an issue, and I personally I'm not completely knowledgeable on the real technical side of the game. I need to be able to ask questions, and I need to be able to get that support. Customer support, I think it's the top of my list when looking for a server host or somewhere to host a server.
It's extremely important. It's, at the end of the day, I mean, I came into it as a complete newbie. I'd never touched Minecraft servers before at all. I've got a computing background, I work with computers and stuff, but I'd never touched Minecraft servers. So the customer support was a big thing for us as well. And we've had some good experiences with them, I'll say. We've been quite lucky, I think, with who we've gone with.
Yeah, and I tell you what, a lot of the time you do hear very mixed reviews about server hosting companies, and the only thing you can really suggest is look around, do research before just finding the first website and going for it, because there's a lot you have to balance. You have to balance the cost, which is sort of a bugbear of mine for Minecraft. You think you've bought this Minecraft game, but now if you want to play with other people, you've got to be forking out, sometimes can be quite a lot of cash every month to just be able to play with other people.
It's ridiculous.
And I really wish, I can't see it happening. The pessimist inside me, I can't see anything happening around that just because of the technicalities of it. Mojang can't host all of these servers. They can't be hosting the Psycraft server with the sort of things they'd be doing.
Yeah, I know, geez.
And it sort of made me think of the Realms system, which is still in the game, but I think is, from my experience, is really quite underused. And you feel like,
to be honest,
you feel like it should have some potential, and it could be really good, but it just doesn't. I think it's outdated now. I think it worked well back in sort of the golden age of Minecraft, so to speak. Though we're in the golden age now, by my opinion.
one, there's been about 5 golden ages. Take your pick. It never dies,
each
does it?
update. Yeah, exactly. Minecraft, the immortal game.
It really is.
Yeah, and but I think cost, that is one of the big issues. For server hosting.
I agree with you. You've got to do your research first. You've got to.
Exactly.
So we had like a giant spreadsheet of about 20 different providers in the end, I think it was, and like just comparing each and everything against some like general customer service reviews, costs, response time for customer service as well is a big thing, because if you have an issue and you've got 10-15 players on your back, like what's happening here, you need them to be reasonably fast as well as to know what they're talking about. So there's a lot to take into account before actually going ahead with it. So if you're looking to do it yourself, 100% do your research.
Do your research, and also ask around has been really beneficial to me, especially about 6 months ago, I'd say. We moved host once again from our previous host to where we are now, and it was a slight price increase. However, one of the main reasons for moving was the actual performance of the server and the hosting company itself, and their attitude, I think, was one of the big motivators. And being able to you sort of feel this sort of freshness when you actually enter into a community who want to help you. That it's a real big thing, I think. But yeah, just do your research, ask around, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people who will be willing to tell you the pros and cons of different server companies just from their experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, word of mouth is the best advertisement. Let's be real. If you've got a friend, for example, if I'm looking to start it and I go, "Hey, Rover, who do you use? Would you recommend them?" If you give me a glowing review, there's a very good chance I'm going to go ahead with it. Do you know what I mean?
There really is, and that was the way I found our current server host. I asked around SMPs that were also doing a similar sort of thing to us, so hosting a single world, not too draining. It's vanilla Minecraft, you hope it's not too draining. And I asked for recommendations, and that's how I ended up where we are today. And I'm sure in the future, who knows, things may change and it'll move around, but word of mouth really is one of those really, really big ones.
Oh yeah, 100%. One big question. Do you run dedicated?
We do not. So I have not run a dedicated server. Now, my knowledge around this is not very sort of up to speed. So, Simmy, do you want to explain to me and the listeners as well, who don't know, what's a dedicated server compared to a normal server?
So basically, a regular server is, so the easiest way is, imagine you've got one computer, right? And a dedicated server would mean no matter how much we're actually using of that computer is ours. So if we need to kind of go over what we're technically allowed, it'll push that wee bit. Whereas a normal server would have, say, 2, 3, 4 different servers all split up between that one PC. So say you have 16 gig of RAM. You could have 4 going to Mathicraft, 4 going to Zeocraft, 4 going to iPixel, 4 going, I don't know, to Epic. But basically everyone's got dedicated resources within the same PC. Basically, it's a really watered down way of saying it. There's big pros and cons to all of them, but to put it in really, really simple terms, that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's my sort of knowledge as well about it, I must admit. And it has been it's been a bit of a battle, but one of the big reasons for not going down the dedicated route is because of price.
Yeah, that's the biggest drawback of dedicated.
It really does increase the price a lot, because imagine you are buying a computer, not just a quarter of a computer.
Yeah, that's basically what you're doing.
So it is. It's a bit of a battle, and it's not the nicest thing. I wouldn't if someone came up to me and said, "Hey Rover, I've got two things I want to do, but I can only do one of them: host a server or run a YouTube channel." Yeah, run a YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly. Easy. It's really simple.
Yeah. As we've discussed earlier on previous episodes of the podcast, so make sure you go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. There's challenges that come with everything, really, but server hosting, yeah, not one of my favourite things to do, I must admit.
It's not for the faint. You're going to need a lot of time. It
really isn't. It's a big time drainer. It really does use up a lot of your time, and you always spend longer than you think. You always need to sort of, how long do you think it will take, and then double it and add a bit more probably.
You're being conservative there. Double it, quadruple it easily. But then even once you've got it all up and working, there's always something wrong with it. Always.
Yeah, there's always something that changes or updates or
I can stress test it beyond belief. And yet 30 seconds after release it, someone says, "This isn't working." I spent 5 hours on it, didn't find any problems, but you come in after 2 seconds and go, "Yeah, it doesn't work." Thanks. Love that.
It really is. It really is typical. And it's a tough area. Now, I don't think we're going to spend the whole episode of the podcast just ranting about server hosts, which I'm sure me and Simmy could do. we could be here, and we probably will continue after the podcast has finished ranting about server hosting.
Yeah.
But I sort of wanted to take a look at the other side of it and sort of politics within a community. Simmy, how have you ever come across in your 6 months of hosting? Have you come across sort of issues, arguments, griefing, all of these sorts of issues, the more politics and human side of server hosting? How have you dealt with it and that sort of thing?
Non-stop. So, given it's run publicly, we don't have like a checklist you must meet to join the server or anything. You just need to find the IP somewhere. So, naturally, you're going to get the odd bad fruit in. So it happens. We need to make sure we've got plenty of staff. So there's usually someone available if there is problems. Go on, and worst case scenario, stall until the right person can get on. But the big thing we kind of had to put into place was like a kind of ticket system on Discord, which is if you have a problem, just make a ticket, message staff, and get it all smoothed out. And the amount of times we've had things about griefing and all that, there's only so much we can do about it at the end of the day. We've put claims on the server so that once you make your house, you can protect it. People can't break the blocks unless you trust them. But you would not believe the amount of issues we still have, even though we put pretty much everything we possibly can in place to help them. At the end of the day, you just got to try and look out for the players as much as possible. If you've got someone who's just joined the servers, come on and repeatedly killing your most loyal player, you've got an idea for what that most loyal player is like. They're not going to be ripping it, for lack of a better word. They're telling the truth, and you've always just got to, as you said, bring in the human side to it and just do what the right thing is. As silly as that sounds, you just kind of use your head a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of the time now my experience is a little bit different to Simmy's. As Simmy said, he's hosting a public server. I'm hosting a whitelisted server with a select group of people who we invite. Now, previously, that was a little bit different. It was application-based. You could ask to join through a little application process. And then again, we came across, we had the bad fruits. And now we've come to the stage where we've got our set group of people, and then when we decide we invite people to come in who we trust and are part of the community, and we've obviously got many less issues now than we did 2 years ago when we did an application-based system. But then again, still from time to time, you will get sort of clashes between players, and I think that's a natural part of human life, really.
Even to get on with everyone, you're just not.
Exactly, and trying to it's generally the role of the staff or the server host who's hosting it, and to be that mediator in between. And generally, in my experience, a lot of what you find is there's been a little misunderstanding, and that's caused the clash, or it is one of those cases where, okay, these two people, they're probably not going to get on as great friends, but they can still be civil with one another. They can still enjoy the game and play the way they want to play. So it's always about finding that balance. And again, I think that's just a skill you can learn over time. And you can learn that not through Minecraft server hosting, but through all sorts of things. Just being a part of a community, you sort of begin to pick up these sort of skills. It's about communication, really. I really think that should be a podcast in itself. Communication.
That's a much better thing than Minecraft, though. That's above and beyond.
That really is. I'd have to get someone quite intelligent to come on and talk about it with me.
Hey, what are you trying to say here? Hold on. What are you trying to say here? Huh? What are you saying? Trying to say I'm a dum-dum over here, huh? That's it.
So, moving on.
I'm raging at that. Come on here, just hold stupid. Love to see it.
That's the ratings at the end of the podcast gone down, I'm sure.
4.9 out of 5. Still plenty of time left for that to go down.
Simmy, so what other tidbits have you picked up in your experience with hosting a server and playing on servers that have been hosted by other people?
Yeah, it's interesting because for me it started, my first server was actually the TGL server, which is run by Sir Geeky Gamer, which I'm sure there's actually a couple of players who play on both Mathacraft and that server, which is actually shut down now, sadly. Rest in peace. What a good server. Anyway, and on that, I think actually a lot of things that I learned for, like, kind of going back a wee bit to what we were talking about there with politics, a lot of how I learned to deal with it was actually from that server. Because the way they did it was like a council system. So basically, there's like 3 trusted players, as myself, Aaron, who played in that UHC actually, which I died straight away in. But yeah, so I learned how to mediate the kind of things there. And then, as you said, kind of real life experiences as well. Let's be honest, it's all petty squabbles on Minecraft. It's never actually a matter of life and death. So it's reasonably simple. But yeah, I think the kind of whole mediating argument thing is a big side of it. But just generally, interacting with people, it's weird. It's like a whole other way of interacting with people. Like sometimes they expect you to know things you just don't, but you need to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's you sort of learn on the go, I think, is one of the real big things. You learn from your other experiences, your real life in-person experiences, but you do learn about people's characters, and you can sort of get to know people and sort of get an idea of what they might be like and getting on with people. And it really is. It's just one of those skills which I think just builds up over time, and everyone gets it at some point, hopefully. Otherwise, not too much of a people person.
Yeah, bit of a difficult one.
Yeah, it is. It's a really important thing, I think, if you are in the server hosting world, to be able to mediate, work with people, communicate. It's just ever so important. It really is. Really is.
Yeah, I think one of the other big struggles you can find sometimes, and you'll probably find this yourself as well, towards the end of update cycles, so say towards the end of 1.16.5, before 1.17 comes out here, trying to maintain a player base can be really difficult. You've got to keep it going.
Yeah, that is such a good point. It's my nemesis after server hosting, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course. They're always in. Always.
Always. Yeah, maintaining a player base. So the way Mojang have sort of settled into their update cycle is that we tend to see, generally, this has been thrown out the window now, but we'll forget about 1.17. We're seeing about one major update a year. And that means that the hype builds up. You get a lot of hype when the update releases, and then that will slowly dissipate down. You've probably still got, assuming it releases in Christmas, in summer, you've probably got a fair bit of still hype and encouragement to be active, or still around Christmas. But it's when you start hearing about the new update, that's actually when it goes downhill, I find.
It's those last 3 months. The last really 3 months, like everyone's done the buildings for the year, everyone's done all the challenges. You've beat the Ender Dragon 17 times. You've strip mined Netherite until your brain rots. You've done everything the game has, but you look at all this new content. Oh, there's going to be glow squids. Oh, there's going to be these new caves, and you don't want to play the game as it is. You want to play what you're seeing.
Yeah,
Which
and it's a never-ending battle, and I think from so we got sort of similar but different things going on. As you run a public server and I run a private whitelisted server, we see we do see this decrease. I think you see it anywhere really.
yeah,
And it's all about trying to maintain and keep community engagement and involvement, which is so hard. It is such a difficult thing to do. And yeah, it's always an ongoing battle. You've got to think of something that's going to keep people engaged for just those few more months to carry them over the finishing line, and then it all starts over again. And a lot of that I find is encouraging player engagement with one another, and
that's where you get your time. It's get people to interact with each other, do things together. So for me, when I was playing on TGL, I actually found one of the best things I did was these escape rooms. It's stupidly simple concept, loads of little puzzles put together, get to the end, get a time. But it got everyone playing. Absolutely everyone was coming on wanting to do this. It's like there was go a wee bit quieter, then I'd release this escape room and it would boom for a week. And everyone would come on and they do the escape room and think, oh, what if I actually went and did this build or did this, and gets it going again and it dies down a little bit more, then I do another one, it goes back again. And so from there I learned kind of constant content. And then something that's a little bit different for us with my server is we do have some plugins and stuff. It's not fully vanilla. So at that we're kind of looking at things there to try and spice it up a little bit. So for a while we actually had like a quest system in place. It was like MMO Minecraft basically, and it was running well and stuff. But we had a little bit of an issue with a plugin, and we didn't know what one, so it had to kind of go. But I think certainly for once 1.17 starts to quieten down, I'd imagine we'd have time to go through and have that kind of system set up and ready to introduce as kind of our 1.17.6. Basically, like, they've done their updates and then we do ours to kind of try and keep our player base going until 1.18 comes out, etc. So I think for us, we're slightly fortunate we can kind of dip into plugins and stuff to try and just add that little bit extra. But keeping it entirely vanilla, you're wrongly relying on people interacting with each other. It's that simple.
Yeah, and it does sort of touch on with what you were saying about mini games, and that has always been a brilliant way of getting people to interact. If you encourage people to let's go out and build some mini games. Let's dedicate a month. Let's dedicate a few weeks to go out there, and we're all going to build mini games. Everyone's going to do something different, and then you realise, hang on, now we've got 20 new mini games. We're going to have to play these, and you get much more interaction and. Trying to keep players motivated, I think a lot of it stems from interactions with other people and seeing what else is going on. If you see someone else building nearby, you might think, hang on a second, I want to keep up on this progress. I like to see what's going on. And being able to fly around a server and jump on and see something new every day, it's so motivating. And you do notice it, especially at the start of a season. You're always wanting to play. There's always something going on. There's such a hub of activity, and it's motivational for everyone to get on and play.
Oh yeah, it is. And then especially when it's like a new district, so you see something come from just grass and dirt, and all of a sudden a skyscraper pops up here, a mini game pops up there, and you're like, well, I want to contribute to that area, so here's my thing. And everyone throws a little thing in, and eventually you've got this crazy mess of awesomeness, and
exactly
you're sorted for another month. And then someone else decides, you know what, I'm going another 1,000 blocks away and I'm going to do the thing again. And just constantly keep adding to it. It's really fun. It's fun.
The idea, the thing that came into my head just then when you were talking was the domino effect. That's really what you want. You want one person to start and then it just to kickstart this chain of dominoes falling over, or in the other way, dominoes standing up as buildings pop up.
Just put that video in reverse and you're sorted.
Yeah, play the podcast in reverse. I don't think you'll get as much from it.
We might say something really strange if you put it in reverse.
Hey, dangerous game, that dangerous game.
Don't cancel me, please.
So, Simmy, now we've sort of touched on and we've continued to rant about hosting even more, really. Um, Something we mentioned a little bit earlier was plugins and that
Yes.
sort of thing. So, what's your experience with plugins and how have they made Minecraft better?
Well, plugins, I've sick to death of them. I really am. We've got about, I think, roughly 30 running our server right now. So, it's a long process trying to get them all set up, configured, and the worst of all, making sure they're compatible with each other. That's an absolute nightmare. They're actually really good if you want to learn a new skill, which sounds really weird, but if you want to be able to edit them properly and work them properly, you need to kind of learn a little bit of code. Now, obviously, it's Minecraft. It's such a called Java edition, so it's all Java code. But it's actually somehow I've kind of semi-learned how to code out of it, which is a weird skill to have learned from running a Minecraft server. But there you go. They've helped the game a lot, though. They really have. If you look at it, a lot of the most successful servers and stuff like that all have some sort of modifications to them. They just do. It's simple. Whether it's like X mods so that you can communicate with each other like in different ways, or I don't know, a gameplay editing mod. There's so many different ways of just. If you thought Minecraft had endless possibilities, you then add plugins and data packs and mod packs and everything to it, and it just adds a whole new level to it. Plus, I
Yeah,
mean, if you want a bit of fun, there's some good mods out there for content. There really is. I've had some crackers.
there really is. Now, I have to say, modding really isn't my scene at all, so I'm hesitant to go into it too much. But
It's
yeah,
mainly
I
data
tell you
packs
what,
I've worked. Main
yeah,
data packs and
data
plugins.
packs is something I've been working with now for a couple of years, pretty on and off with the UHG data pack, and it's. I tell you what, I've learned so much about the way Minecraft runs, and actually just a lot of theory behind programming through doing it, even if most of it is just based on just Minecraft commands and the structure of them
Or
and
even just changing a
variables.
number. As silly as that
Exactly.
sounds, changing a number from 4 to 5, understanding what that does, why it edits that the way it does. And like even the grammar of the code, like making sure you get
Yeah.
semicolons and then just all silly little things like that. You learn a ridiculous amount just from messing about with it. Honestly,
Yeah,
if you
it
have
really
the
is.
time and you're looking for something to do, mess about with it, you'll be surprised what you learn.
And if you're looking for, I guess, a sort of a simple programming language to start learning, I'd highly recommend learning Python.
Python's
Now,
good.
I've been doing Python for a couple of years on and off now, and it's an easy enough language to get your head around. There's tons of content online to help you, and yeah. So if you're interested in that sort of more technical side of things, Python might be something worth having a look into. It's a really great language. There's loads you can do with it, and it's not ridiculously complex as you sort of go up the chain.
Yeah. My main code in C#, which is a little bit more complicated. Python's a bit more, I'm not trying to diminish it, but it's a bit more entry level. You'll be easier to get your
Yes.
head around Python. And if you want to learn C#, let's start with Python, learn the kind of fundamentals there, and then transition into a language like C# or Java. But Python's
Yeah.
really good for getting your head around the basic concepts of them.
Yeah, it's all about understanding the basics or the base concepts of programming, and then you can apply it with different language to elsewhere. So
Yeah,
a lot of what I found really useful is if I know there's something I want to do with the UHC data pack, I've actually programmed it in Python. The logic behind it in Python. Now, obviously, that doesn't work in Minecraft, but then I can look at it and think, actually, okay, so there I've got an if statement. I now need to translate this into Minecraft. So let's use the execute command and all of this sort of thing. And actually being able to use Python as basically a bit of a sketchboard and just planning has been really useful. Just to be able to sort of extrapolate that then into Minecraft or into whatever you're doing. So you never know, it might be one of those things that you might find useful one day.
yeah, it's really good. Actually, weirdly, and I can't believe I didn't mention this when you what I was doing, but it actually has led me to start developing my own game a little bit, believe it or not.
Oh,
From
right.
messing around with those things in Java, I've actually started making my own little game. So maybe watch out for that in the future.
Well, we will keep our eyes very much peeled, I'm sure.
It's nothing. It's nothing overly complex because it is my first time dabbling with code properly. But hopefully I can make a little something happen with it.
Well, I am very excited. You have to keep me in the loop, Simmy, and we'll mention it on the podcast.
I definitely will. I'll keep you.
Well, when we hear more, that'd be brilliant. One of the last things I sort of wanted to mention was for those who are completely unaware about server hosting and just running Minecraft, the technicalities of it, Fabric, Forge, Spigot, Bucket, what are they?
Are they basically... again, I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. You've got your plugins and mods. You've got Minecraft. These things are basically your Google Translate in between. They let these two talk to each other properly. They give Minecraft the support to communicate with this code. It's how I can put it really, really simply.
That is a very good way of... I was thinking in my head, how on earth am I going to say that? But you put it into words better than I could.
Trust me, I work with computers. You need to know how to say things really simply without seeming like you're kind of putting another person down. Like, you just got to... It's a weird skill to learn, but yeah, it becomes useful on occasion.
It's a useful one. It's a useful one, yeah. And there are a lot of varieties out there in the Minecraft community. So as I mentioned, there's the big sort of old school one is Forge, and from that came Bucket and Spigot and Paper. And then sort of on the other side of things, you have Fabric, which is a much more of a low level version of this sort of Google Translate, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it is really useful. So things like Forge, Spigot, Paper, they actually change the fundamentals of Minecraft code, meaning things like redstone, mob spawning, things like that can behave not as expected, and not as vanilla Minecraft. However, if you're interested in running mods, as we mentioned earlier, things like lithium, phosphor, there'll be links to all of those down in the description of the podcast. Using things like Fabric allows you to use these mods, which don't affect gameplay but you want for performance, without having to have gameplay changes by using a mod hosting platform like Fabric or Forge. So Fabric, it's definitely one of my favorites, and it's something I've just been using non-stop for about a year now, and it's been great just being able to run all of these mods.
Yeah, I'm mainly Fabric and Spigot. Spigot's more it's more useful for the server to use Spigot, but for personal enjoyment, Fabric's probably the best way to go.
Yeah, Fabric is probably the way forward. You get a simple mods folder, you drop your mods in there, boot up the game. As long as the mods are good, you're running.
Yeah.
And it is useful. It is useful.
It's basically like online shopping. Just click what you want and drop it in your basket and on you go.
Instead of click and collect, click and drop. Though it doesn't really have the same ring to it, so...
Yeah, scrap that one. It's not going to catch on. You didn't get the investment, unlucky.
Well, I'm looking for your suggestions in the comments down below.
Yeah, I'll read them, I promise.
Brilliant. Yeah, Simmy, is there anything else you wanted to touch on about server hosting?
Honestly, just if you want to do it, have a little dabble in it. You don't need to pay money. You can actually set it up to run off your own PC, but you do need to be careful of that because there can be security problems and stuff. So do your research. I'm not going to fully advise on it, but do your research. Understand what it is you're looking at, and if you fancy it, have a little play around with it. It is fun.
Yeah, I'm on a similar page to Simmy there. Do your research, ask around, and you can never have enough knowledge, and there will always be issues to overcome. But I tell you what, the Minecraft community always seems to bounce back, and is just brilliant and is always helpful. There are so many Discord servers out there that I just have Minecraft devs in, and have all sorts of people in that are really useful just for all sorts. So highly recommend just doing your research. Yeah, like Simmy said, and find out and enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Just enjoy it. And if you get any questions at really basic things or anything I've kind of dabbled in, leave a comment and I will reply. Or Rover will reply, either way. But yeah,
we will. We'll keep our eyes on the comments of the YouTube channel. So
do our best.
we will try.
Yeah, not professional, but we'll do our best.
Simmy, thanks ever so much for joining me on this episode of the podcast. It's been awesome to chat and rant about server hosting and our experiences and all of that jazz. Thanks ever so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I feel like I just came on and complained for however long it's been. But yes, thank you very much for having me.
Like we said, we go on a rant, we go on a ramble, and then we put it out. Hopefully, some people will enjoy it.
Yeah, trust me, it's fun. As much as we complain, it's fun. Promise you.
Positive reviews so far.
Promise.
Speaking of reviews, we have a tradition here on the podcast, Simmy, to rate the podcast out of 5. Now, so far, we have a 5 out of 5 rating. Will that maintain, or because I insulted you earlier, will that not?
I think they need to give you a -3 for what you said earlier on. I can't lie.
-3.
All seriousness, go on. I had it with a little 5 out of 5. Awesome time.
Brilliant.
Great guy. Had fun.
I'm glad to hear it.
At my head, there'll always be a little chip on the reputation.
We have some casual insults flying here and there.
Won't reflect on the rating, but just know it's there.
So, Simmy, where can people find out a little bit more about you on the internet?
A little bit more about me on the internet. You'll find me at Simmy1972 on YouTube, and yeah, basically go there. All my links are just from there. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Just Simmy1972 on YouTube, and any other links you want, you'll get them all on there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simmy. And similarly, I can be found all over the internet. On YouTube, I can be found at youtube.com/Rover1. And on Twitter, I can be found at twitter.com/Rover1_. All the links will be found to both mine and Simmy's channel, and everything we've discussed about in today's episode of the podcast can be found down below in the description. Also, help out the podcast. We are pretty new to the podcasting game. This is our 4th episode of the Rover Ramble. If you'd like to support the podcast, if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe, leave a like and share it to a friend. We can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts through a quick Google search. Thanks ever so much for listening to today's episode of the Rover Ramble podcast. My name's been Rover, his name's been Simmy, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.